great to be in Dallas again. I was reflecting backstage. A long time ago, I was recruited here by a company called Texas Instruments to build the first chips that went into a candy bar Nokia phone. Any of you guys remember that? Right? This was a time when hallucinations were caused by a lack of intelligence, not because of intelligence. So it's deeply personal. Coming back here 30 years later, that phone could probably handle one GenAI query before it died. That's how much battery life it had. And now here we are, doing the GenAI honky-tonk boogie-woogie in Gillies. So let's talk. I have the privilege and honor of being able to see what's happening across the whole of the telco industry, across all 1,500 telcos that are experimenting with AI and GenAI, what's working, what's not. And what I'd like to do is share a few of those stories with you today as to how different telcos worldwide are using GenAI. And some of them have been kind enough to allow us to share those stories here. 2023 was the year of POCs for us. Literally thousands of POCs. But 2024 was the year of production. And this isn't true just of the telco domain. I'm part of a larger group where we are super focused on creating industry-specific AI solutions among the other cloud solutions that we provide. I have peers in financial services where the New York Stock Exchange has started using GenAI. I have peers in the automotive industry where Toyota has started using GenAI. But today we'll talk about how telcos are using GenAI. And there are road bumps in the path to production, and we'll talk about those as well. So let's take a look at some of these use cases and deployments out there. We're really starting to see the segmentation come through, a very natural segmentation. It's absolutely no surprise to anyone who's ever dabbled in this that customer engagement has been one of the fastest moving, most productive use cases for AI and GenAI. And what we've done is we've layered on GenAI onto one of our services called AWS Connect, which is a cloud contact center. And that is being adopted at scale across multiple industries, including telco. But it's also with our partners, right? All the cloud contact center partners that we have on AWS. It's boosting post-call summaries. It is doing churn reduction analysis. I was with a customer just last week. They said after GenAI, they had taken down the analysis time for their CDRs, they're called data records, from 4 months to 4.5 hours. That is the kind of productivity improvements that we're seeing here. We're starting to see an increase in retention. 5%, 10% for now, but a real line of path to more substantive results in that space. And of course, personalized recommendations. And then computable contracts is a big one. If you really look at the business operations side, how does your B2B sales team generate RFP responses at scale? Most of you have had a B2B arm that's generated literally tens of thousands of RFPs for the last few decades. They're all sitting in probably file boxes somewhere or in some old data stores. Once you liberate that, Here's what's happening. You get a new RFP in, you basically, the salesperson goes in and says, what RFPs have worked that are similar to this? Go generate something for me. And it's going to generate you an RFP response that you're going to look over, you're going to edit it, you're still going to have a human in the loop, but it's a massive productivity increase. Just imagine the velocity of revenue when something like that happens. Same thing's happening in terms of computable contracts related to revenue leakages. You have all had analysts looking at enterprise contracts, comparing usage. That's all being automated now. And of course, internal developer productivity. We launched something we call Q for Developer, which sits in your IDE and gives you code suggestions, writes code based on natural language inquiries. It's being adopted at scale. Then network operations. This is super fascinating for us. Most telcos have historically had a customer-facing operations center, and they've had a network-facing operations center, and a field-facing operations center, like in field operations. What if you were able to unite those three? What if you were to democratize access to all of the data? What if your call center agent, when someone called in, was actually able to query the network topology and to see what was wrong? Kick off an RCA. And then the RCA then kicks off a remedial action. And then you close the loop. So full observability, democratized observability. And that's what we can do now with generative AI. So this is probably the single most impactful use case that we're seeing in the industry across multiple customers worldwide. Then sources of revenue. How do you actually use GenAI to create new sources of revenue? We've implemented GenAI agents in the home. It's nothing new, right? Alexa's been there forever. So with a customer, TELUS, we've actually launched a smart home agent on top of their smart home platform so that you can actually start interacting with your whole smart home in natural language. And it learns from you and it creates new routines. Edge inference and analytics, work we're doing with some of our partners here. Hyper-personalization of offers. It's something we've been doing for a long time at Amazon. If you ever used Amazon.com, you've seen our GenAI in action in terms of the displays that you see there. If you use Prime Video, you've seen our GenAI in action in terms of what gets presented to you. That's all hyper-personalized. And then take the whole the network operations domain, the customer operations domain, and apply it to security operations. So that's what we're seeing. These are the 4 large buckets. Now let's take a few customers, and I picked these for a reason. The first one is SK Telecom. The reason I picked this is so let's back up. 3 years ago, there was 34 language models available on Hugging Face, which is the model garden. Any idea how many models there are on Hugging Face today? There's over 350,000. 350,000 models. So what's happening is models are getting tuned by industry, by a use case in the industry, by a sub use case in the industry. They're becoming agentic. And so what we started doing with SK Telecom is they took Claude, which is Anthropic's models, and they trained it on the corpus of their telco data. And what we've seen is about a 10 to 15% uplift in the accuracy that Andy was talking about earlier over a generic LLM. And Telcloud is going to be made available for any telco to use. And then you can just use your own RAG techniques to further enhance it. The reason I picked Chunghwa Telecom is automatically generating specification documents, the SDLC, but it's indicative because this is a pictorial language that they're using in Taiwan. The models needed to be tuned. Whereas we're used to phonetic, even Korea it's phonetic, but in Chunghwa, it was a pictorial output. TELUS. This was fascinating. The premise was that the best way to handle a customer inquiry is not even to let it reach the contact center. Why can't the device have enough intelligence to answer it? Starting to create SLMs that then get deployed onto the device itself and provide you that answer, provide you that resolution locally. And there's many more, right? I could go on and on about these. Frag Magenta with Deutsche Telekom. Dish, their contact center, they were able to migrate 6,000 agents in one day from their on-prem contact center to a cloud-based contact center. That was completely GenAI enabled. Liberty Latin America, headquartered just up the street. Post-call analytics, forensic analysis. Globe, 360-degree customer view, and so on and so forth. Network operations, T-Mobile started using GenAI for RAN optimization. We have Samsung, which is developing a cognitive network operations suite. British Telecom, we just announced today, in fact, that they launched a generative AI gateway on AWS. Now, why? When you have your choice of models on Bedrock and SageMaker, which are our services, well, there's a couple of models out there that aren't natively available. So they wanted to use them in certain cases. So we enable that because we work backwards from a customer need. Now, let me walk you through what we provide in the AI space. It's always been 3 layers. We've always wanted to provide the industry with the most performant, cost-effective infrastructure on Earth and choice among that infrastructure. So today, if you go into AWS, you get a choice of our own silicon, which we call Inferentia and Trainium, which we believe is 40 to 50% cheaper than comparable instances. And that's something we've designed in-house for AI, and we've been deploying for a few years now, to be honest. You have your choice of the latest NVIDIA instances with their stack. Just start using it on AWS. There's no need to go buy these big racks and put them in. Then you also have your choice of Intel's processors, AMD's processors, because this space is going to move fast. It's going to be a new chip every week, I exaggerate. But we will keep up and we will make sure that the latest instances are always available. The data governance aspect of it, my previous talkers previous speakers have talked about it. You all understand the importance of that. We're all about choice. We want to give you the largest choice of foundation models on our infrastructure. If I go back 4 years ago when I first joined AWS, we said we want to be the place where virtual network functions run best. And so we started working with all of the VNF manufacturers, the Ericssons, the Nokias, the Mavnias of the world, and made sure that their virtual network functions run on AWS. And that's how you build networks in the cloud. Now we're doing the same thing with models. We want to be the place where industry-specific, use case-specific, and the most performant models reside and run best. So you will have your choice of any model you choose to use. You can even bring your own model and start running it. And of course, strong security and governance. Security is always job zero for us. And in our shared responsibility model, we will make sure that the infrastructure and the stack is super secure, and work with you to make sure that we give you the tools so that you build the most secure applications out there using AI and GenAI. A broad partner ecosystem, these hundreds of telco-specific ISVs. We're working with them to make sure each of them has a generative AI layer that you can use, from BSS vendors to OSS vendors to CRM vendors. We are consciously making sure that every one of those that are critical to the telco industry is equipped with the latest GenAI capabilities. And we're learning from them. So what's next, right? We talked about the network domain. We talked about the operations domain, the enterprise domain, the consumer domain. Where do you go? We actually think there is going to be a layer that is across all of these domains within a telco. But you got to start somewhere, which is the whole point of maybe not all at once. I think the customer service side, with proven value, is actually starting to accelerate. But take that learning, deploy it into your network domain, deploy it into the operations domain, the field operations domain, into your enterprise sales teams, into your enterprise product development, into consumer experiences in their connected car, in their connected home, across their device ecosystem that you provide. That's really where we're headed, in our opinion. So Mark talked a little bit about Gamut, and I think George did as well. What we're seeing across that broad ecosystem is less than a sixth of the worldwide operators have more than 10 Gen AI use cases in production. And only a third of them have actually made an intentional effort to say, this is the single-threaded owner, this is the single-threaded leader who's going to lead our Gen AI strategy. And there is a lot of uncertainty and doubt as to how to proceed in the industry, which is why you see that huge backlog of POCs and less production at this point. So we need to start moving. Right? The reason we put Gamut together with the TM Forum was to give you a framework to evaluate how to move from that POC to production across your organizational readiness, across your technology adoption and maturity, across the security aspects of it, across ROI, across moving it into production, and how do you maintain the MLOps in production. So as you go through the rest of today and tomorrow at the show, try to think of things through the lens of the Gamut and see if that helps. If not, give us the feedback and we'll incorporate it. But it's really important to have a very standardized, repeatable framework to move these thousands of POCs into production, because that's the only way we can get value. And like Kamran said, select the right use case, empower your teams, don't necessarily throw unnecessary roadblocks in their path. You'll be surprised what they do. So what does the future hold? ROI and value. This is where we are. It's time to start measuring ROI and value. Multimodal models are here. They're available on AWS, and start using them. SLMs, the small language models, and even small action models are starting to proliferate. MLOps is becoming extremely important. Hallucinations, you have to control them. And when you can't, you actually have to be able to explain them and fix them. And then, of course, optimized AI infrastructure. That is what we're seeing. So move quickly, customize for your data sets, for your use cases, and start scaling. We're here to help. Thank you.